Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Introduction to Procreate workshop today. This session will introduce you to the basics of Procreate, which is a drawing app for the Apple iPad. We'll go through all the different brushes, tools, basic drawing techniques, and some animation basics. There's no prior experience that's necessary, but you will need an iPad with Procreate if you want to follow along, and usually people use an Apple Pencil or some third-party stylus with it. Joining us today and delivering this awesome workshop is Gu. She is an iOS programmer and an illustrator. She works on providing open access to education. When she's illustrating, she makes comics that explore family relationships and self-reflection. In her spare time, she enjoys dancing and making things with her hands. So thank you so much for joining us. If you are following along, we'd love to see what you're doing and everything that you're learning. Please use the hashtag visualizeIT tag, and it's going to be great because we'll all consolidate that and see all the fun stuff that people have come up with. So without taking away further time from Gu, thanks for doing this.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to go ahead and if people join along the way, I'll just be sure to go back and put in the guide. Okay, so Procreate it's a tool on the iPad. So there's a lot of different versions of the iPad that Procreate is available on. Depending on the iPad you use, you might have a different Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil 1, it uses the Apple Pencil 2 basically clips onto the iPad, and the iPad charges with the USB-C. And then the newer iPad has laminated display and a USB-C connector, so you can also have more layers and more colors on the Procreate app. So it's just be mindful of what tools you buy, or which version of the iPad that you buy. And then some other tools that I suggest to pair with your iPad is a matte cover screen to make it feel like you're working on paper. Sometimes you also would want a compatible keyboard so you can type. There's also a bunch of fun things for the Apple Pencil. So people can follow along. I don't know if you want to pin a link or if I should just put this in the chat and it'll stay. But people can follow along at gubian.online/procreate. And so that contains a lot of what we're going to cover. It defines what Procreate is, and it defines a lot of the different tools that we use. And then later on, I'll put screenshots that I recorded and make it more into a website instead of a document. So you can actually see the examples. But for now, it's going to be used as guidance for this workshop. So when you first open the app, also people are welcome to ask any questions, or feel free to interrupt me if you see a question. So this is the gallery view. If you're opening for the first time, it comes with a few example drawings. So I don't think I have them actually in the beginning. And so you can delete these. And then if you want to recover them, you can just click on the Procreate logo on the top left, and it'll let you recover your gallery or restore some example artworks. So just waiting for people to join the talk. So a few things you can do here. So everything is very drag and drop compatible. So you can hold here and you can move this. You can move all the images around. So you can organize your gallery. I already have a few sketches here. So I have a lot of things to organize. And then basically, you can also put them into stacks. So if you hold onto a drawing and then you stack it on top, sometimes it's a little hard to get. Oh, okay, so it loaded. You can organize them into groups. So if you do select also, which is on the top right, you can select different artworks and just click stack, which is also on the top right. It's next to like preview, share, duplicate, delete, and you can stack the images. So the gallery is a place where you just want to organize images. And also feel free to interrupt if I'm going too fast or anything. I want to make sure that this is at a good pace. I can't look at the chat, so people are welcome to unmute and interrupt me. Okay, so another thing you can do also while we're still in the gallery and you have these images is there's a lot of different gestures. I don't know if you can see me, but basically you can use your hands. So I'm just going to describe the gesture, but you'll see it on the screen, which is a little laggy, I'm sorry. But I'll record videos and put them up online to make sure that you can actually see it more clearly. And so one of the gestures is pinch. So if you sort of pinch onto a canvas, then it'll go into preview mode and you can actually swipe through your artwork, as if you use your hands to swipe right and left. And then if you just tap into it, then you'll see all of the editing tools. So I'll go back to the editing tools, like actually drawing a piece of artwork. So before you draw, you actually have to decide what canvas you want to use, and you use the plus sign on the top right portion. So you can make a new canvas. So there's the default screen size, which is the screen size of the iPad, and then you can have all these preset ones, or you can make your new one. So if you make your new one, which is not any of the dimensions listed, you can click the plus button on the top right next to new canvas, and that will let you make an untitled canvas, which you can change the name of, and you can add any number of any number for the width and height. Just note that it'll change the amount of layers you can add, which layers are good if you want to separate your piece. This is my background layer, this is the layer for color, this is the layer for the line art. So the more layers you have access to, the more detailed you can get. So if I do this too, if I go way high, it'll say that it's too large and you can't add any layers. So just keep that in mind. And then the DPI, I believe, is dots per inch. And you can change that. So the higher you get, the higher quality it is. Websites usually are 72 DPI. So you would want to do 72 if you're posting online. And then if you want to do a high quality print, you might do something like 300. So I'm just going to do 72. And then make a new canvas, which this is too shallow, but you can always adjust the canvas to make it bigger, and I'll go over that tool later. So if you're unhappy with it, you can definitely change the size. And all of this is on the document, so it should be in the chat in case everyone's in there, but you can also read along there, and they'll include images later. So we're in a new canvas. You can move it around by using your fingers to zoom in and out. I think if you do a pinch flick, if you do a little flicking motion, it should get you to sort of the full screen mode, but I'm actually really bad at using that. But yeah, so here's the canvas. I'll go through the tools on the top right first. So you can have a paintbrush. So this is your paintbrush. It has a brush library. There's a bunch of different options. I don't use nearly all of them. I actually usually only use 2. So I usually use the 6B pencil, and then people usually adjust it. If you tap into the pencil, if you tap into any of the brushes, it'll open an editing tool, and you can see if you change around the stroke properties, all the different settings on this. I haven't really changed it too much because I like the default pencils, but if you did want to change it, if you streamline usually makes it smoother, for instance, which is what a lot of people change. I haven't really seen people change the jitter and fall off too often, but I could be proven wrong. But yeah, you can test all your changes as well. I'm not going to change the brush. But then also artists make their own brushes. So if you ever see a brush that you really like or an artist that you like, you can just download, see if they have brushes that are made or if they have sort of like the settings of the brushes that they use and just copy them or import them. I'm going to use a 6B pencil, and I'm just going to exit out of that. And then you can also change the color, which I'll go into a little later, but I'll give you a preview. So basically, I'm just going to use, I don't know, maybe I'll use blue. And so I can start drawing, and I think I'll draw. Oh, my opacity is way low. I think I'll draw. I really like drawing these little things I created. I don't know what to call them. They're like little. They're just like little cartoon people. But yeah, I think I'll draw one of those. So usually I like drawing the circles myself, and I'm using my Apple Pen too to draw. So I'm just drawing on it, and then if you wanted to make a more perfect circle, I usually like when they're sort of like a little sketchy. But you can just draw a circle, like it doesn't have to be perfect, and then hold down the Apple Pencil, and then it'll give you a circle. And then notice it's like it might be like a little ovally, so you can just use your pen and it'll make it a perfect circle. You can use your index finger and tap the screen and it'll make it a perfect circle. And then you can do that with like any polygon really. So it'll straighten all the lines. And so if I want to undo, I can click the undo button, which is on the left side of the screen. It's underneath like the slidey thing that I'm currently moving around. I can also tap with 2 fingers to undo. So if I tap the screen with 2 fingers, that also undoes it. If I want to like keep undoing and not just keep tapping, I can just hold down 2 index fingers and it'll undo. I don't want that. So you can also redo by either clicking the redo button under the undo button, or you can use 3 fingers, same thing, tap to redo, hold to redo more. So now I have, I don't know what to name them. Greta. So now I have Greta. I like that name because if you switch out around the letters, it spells great. And so I can change when I'm drawing, like on Greta, I can use different brushes, but I can also change like the opacity. So if I wanted to change the opacity, these are the sliders on the left, basically how transparent the brush is. I can move it around. Oh, sorry, I'm using the eraser. I can move it around. It will be a lighter shade of blue if I wanted that for like maybe shading or something like that. Like sometimes people do their coloring in 1 layer, and sometimes they do it in multiple layers. And I can change the size to be like, oh, I want to use thinner lines for the hands maybe. Or like I don't like the line thickness, so I'm going to make it a bigger brush. Yeah. And then I can also use the eraser. I think on the Apple Pen too, you can just tap the pen twice to get the eraser, but you can also just click on the eraser. This is all on the top left. And then also I can use the Smudge Tool. I don't use the Smudge Tool that often, but I can demonstrate it. So again, you can change the brush size and you can change the type of brush you're using for the Smudge Tool, but this just smudges. It's like if you smudge with your hand or like a cloth with charcoal. And then the eraser we've seen, It just erases. A cool thing about the eraser is that you can, if it's like all of these the eraser uses brushes as well, so you can erase with the type of brush. And if I change it to soft pastel, if I hold down the eraser, it erases with the current brush, the last brush that you used. So I think this will change it. No, for some reason it's not. Usually if you change it, it erases with to match the brush that you're using. I might have done the wrong order of things. I don't usually use that. I usually erase with whatever, because when I need to erase, it's not always so. It's usually because like I want to erase a lot, so I'll use like a really big. I'll just find the biggest eraser I can do. So that's usually what I use it for. And so there's also layers. So you can see that I've been drawing on layer 1 this whole time. You can make a bunch of different layers. So if I use the plus button next to layers, I make more layers. And I can organize the layers with everything. So one thing about Procreate is that it's really drag and drop compatible. So I can organize the layers by dragging and dropping them on top and below. I can also just modify them. But basically, like I usually have a layer for line art. You can also name them so that it's more clear. So I can rename them to say line art. But I usually have a layer for line art and a layer for coloring. And I don't usually name them. I usually just say like layer 1, layer 2, but it's good to name them if you have to pass it on to someone else to work on, because usually like people won't be able to guess between like what line art 3 means versus line art 10, especially if you have multiple layers. So if you're working with someone else, just make sure to label your work so someone understands. But I haven't had to. I've been doing comics for a while, so I haven't had to do that in a long time. And so there are different options on layers. You saw the rename option. You can select a layer through this, but you can also just drag it like to the right motion. So if you just drag it, you can see that you can select multiple layers just by dragging along them. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was still connected. And then you can also, if you select multiple layers, you can do multiple actions on them. You can also like select them to group them together into a group. This is more important if you want to do like, you want to make sure that you're like dragging multiple things together to like make sure that like this is one object, this is another object, like sometimes the objects have like 4 different layers. So if you're drawing like an orange and a banana, like usually like the orange color will be a different layer than the orange line art. So you might want to group those together. Something in addition to all of this is that like most of these are intuitive. Like if you copy the layer, it'll copy the layer, you can paste it. If you fill the layer, it'll fill it with the specific color. And then if you clear it, it erases the layer. If you invert it, it will invert the color. And then referencing usually means that I don't use this feature, but you can basically say I'm using this as a reference photo. And then 2 things, merging down is just like you combine the layers, and you can do that by pinching them together with your fingers actually. I think you can see the animation and maybe not me pinching them, but if I completed this animation, it'll merge the layers together. But yeah, but I don't want them together now because I want to separate them. So one thing I'll do first is I want to explain alpha lock mask and clipping masks. But first I need to actually have another layer filled with like color. So basically, like if I want to color it in, like maybe I'll use a brush, but something easier to do is if you just drag the colors. So I'm using my finger to drag the top right, which is the color. It opens the colors option. If I drag it, then I can fill it. Okay, so usually that means that I didn't, there's like basically an empty space in the circle. Sometimes it's hard if you don't have like a refined brush. Like I usually like using pencil brushes, which sometimes means that there's like chunks missing. So sometimes I just try to figure out, I can't tell where the hole is. It's there, it's in that quadrant. I'm just gonna shade it the rest. But usually that's a nice shortcut for filling it in. It's a little harder with pencil. But yeah, so basically I filled this with color. I use a little, my lines are a little more messy than I would say like someone who used like finer lines. I really like I like the pencil quality a lot, and like that it looks like I drew it in my journal. So I will put that out there. But basically, like I'm filling Greta with color. And yeah, so if I wanted to be like more efficient about this, I would probably make an outline and just drag it in and fill the color. So like for instance, if I did this, I'm so bad at this. I'm gonna leave it. I don't have luck here.
You're doing great. Don't worry.
Oh no, I just like I know that whenever I used this pencil, I always miss the fill. It's like much easier with like a finer pencil, but it is funny because I'm like, oh, I don't know if people want to watch my normal inefficient process of just brushing it in, which is what I do. But like if you wanted to be efficient and like actually like use the app the way that like in like a way that like makes it easier for you to I don't want to say be fast, but just like not waste time doing things that you can do using shortcuts. Like I would have the fill tool, but sometimes it's nice because like you get more, if you have a textured paintbrush, sometimes it like isn't uniform, so it's like you get the nice texture in the shading, which I also like a lot. But I also like solid colors as well. So yeah, now I've drawn this person, and they're filled in. And then someone asked me to draw a duck, so I'm going to draw a duck to showcase something else, but I need a reference photo of a duck. Okay. I like making cartoons and drawing animals a lot, so that's what this will mostly be about. Okay, so now I made a new layer, and it's for my duck. And they're friends. Sometimes I get lazy about coloring, so right now I'll be a little we'll just color this in.
So as you're coloring that in Goo, Wendy just asked a question. So with color, can you start a new page and set a background color? Then would you make a new layer to start drawing on top of that, or would you just draw on layer 1 with the background color?
Oh, sometimes I make a background color initially, So the background color layer is always there. So like you can change it into any color, and you can't really get rid of it, but you can hide it and export it as a PNG, and it'll still be a background. It'll just be transparent. And so sometimes I set the color because it's a good way of showing like where you're missing, sort of like filled in areas or gaps. Like you can see that there's like, when I changed this to pink, it's like way more obvious. I didn't fill in Greta's head. And like I didn't fill in the duck very well. Like I didn't fill it all the way to the edge. So sometimes I just use white if I'm doing something really simple, because I'm like, oh, I don't have time to like refine the coloring and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always good to have a background. And you can change the color. I didn't talk too much about color, but I will go into it a little bit. I usually use the color wheel, but you can use a bunch of different tools. I know that if you double tap with I think with 2 fingers, I don't use this, but you can, if you do, there's one gesture that also gives you the highest saturated version of like whatever portion of the color wheel you're on. But I usually use the color wheel. You can also use this classic one, which is similar, but like in this square. And then Procreate always launches something new. They have like a lot of new features come out. So sometimes this is a new one where you can like get a sense of the complementary colors, which is really cool. So if you chose this color, maybe you would want to choose like this complementary color. And you can also like adjust for brightness to see like if you want a bright one or a darker one. Values I never use, but if you're like really if you know a hex value, that would be a good place to put that in. And then palettes. I don't use palettes, but they're really good to use, especially if you have a lot of like, if you're drawing and you want to make a cartoon series, and you like want original characters, it's really good to have palettes, and you can add them. So like if I wanted to add a palette, I would click the plus on the top right, and I would add a palette. Okay, so I drew this. Does that answer the question also? I realized that I don't have feedback to see if it was satisfactory.
Yeah, if Wendy comments again, I will let you know.
Okay, cool. Realize I'm largely talking to myself. Okay, so I drew the duck. And so I want to fill this in a little bit more if I have a background. Okay, so say if I want to like add shading to the duck, like add shadows or like add some details, like maybe I want to like make a gray shadow on the duck, but like sometimes it's hard. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but sometimes it's hard to like get exactly where the white might be or where you already colored the shape. So a nice thing to do is if you go to layers, there's this property called alpha lock. So it locks whatever is there and you can't change the outline. And so if you click alpha lock, then like this gray will retain to like whatever is colored. But like, what if I make a mistake and I realize down the line? So something nice to do is a clipping mask. And so it's saying like, you make a new layer, you set it to a clipping mask, and it basically like attaches to whatever is below. And then it works the same thing as alpha lock, which is like, I'm shading in, it's not like going outside the lines, it's not going outside the colors. But I can like hide it, so it's like a completely separate layer. So if I ever wanted to delete this, it's gone. Whereas like alpha lock, it's like really tied to, like it's really tied to the layer itself, and you can't really delete it if you don't like it later. I'm going to add another shape. So I made a new layer. And so maybe I really like oranges, so I'll add an orange. And again, like I want to add shading to the orange, so I'll make a new layer. I'll add a clipping mask. And so now I made an orange with shading. And then I'm like, oh, never mind. Like, I don't need a clipping mask because this is definitely what I want. I could just merge down and it will get rid of the clipping mask and it'll make it one layer. And so there's like no option to delete the clipping mask because now it's just one layer and it's the orange. And then say like, I'm like, oh, I want to draw it so that there's a bite out of the orange. I can make a, oh, whoops. You don't need to make a new layer for this. This is not something I use often, but you can make a layer mask and then it will basically mask the layer and you can manipulate it as well. So I'm drawing with black. But it basically, like you have a brush and it puts a mask over the layer depending on like what color value you use. So if I use black, it'll like take away from the layer. So I'm like, oh, look, I drew a bite out of it. And then like now it's separate so you can remove the mask. This doesn't look like an orange bite because I don't think anyone bites into an orange like this, but I think maybe the story is that the duck did it. Or Greta, it'd be either one. Oh. I just want to pause to see if everyone is, we're halfway through. I just want to make sure if anyone has questions before we keep going. Okay, cool. So we went over basically a lot of the right part of the screen, the top right part. So that's like mostly that's like almost all of what I know. I know that like people really like using different brushes. I've been using the 6B pencil this whole time, but you can also do like touch-ups. I think people like the noise brush a lot for shading because it looks, oh, I'm still on the layer mask. But people, oh, I should put on a lot. I'm not following my own advice. But yeah, people like that for shading because it like has this like nice texture to it. But yeah, so I usually use the 6B pencil for all of my drawings, including the coloring. They all have their like ups and downs, but I really like the 6B pencil. And so now I can go through the top left. Just one thing before we do that, I mentioned that there's a slider that changes the size. It changes the opacity. The middle button that I didn't go over, you can use it as it's basically a color picker. It opens the color picker, but normally I just use one finger to open the color picker. So you can use one finger. I put all the gestures on the bottom, so if you're like curious and you're writing this down, you can just look at the bottom and I'll add more. So this is not a complete guide yet, but I wanted to make a guide so that people like could at least like if they wanted to draw along, that they can like use that. And you don't have to make Greta, or you can actually just draw whatever you want. But if you're modeling it off of what I'm drawing, like it could be, you can still draw the duck. Yeah, it opens the color picker, but you can just use a shortcut. So now I have my piece. So if I click the top left, all those options, they basically like let me add and adjust and modify the canvas. So they're pretty like straightforward, like in terms of what they do, like inserting a file will put a file into the canvas. Inserting a photo will like, if you open your photos library, and you can like insert a photo. This is really good if you want a reference photo. There's a lot of more cool shortcuts to like get reference photos from like the browser and like have it be compatible with Procreate. Like I think they really try to make it like drag and drop compatible. Like not even like with just within the app, like within the whole ecosystem. But yeah, you can insert a photo. You can even use the color picker to pick from that photo. You can also take a photo. You can add text. This is pretty new, I think. But the text, like, it's as you expect. It's the like it will take on the color of whatever you currently have as the set color, and you can like move it around. You can even like change the font. You can import new fonts. So this is really nice if you want to like not do handwriting. I do a lot of handwriting in my art, so I don't use this that often. But it creates a new layer. I'm just going to delete it. Copying, pasting. You can copy or cut a selection. Cutting will be like removing it. And I'll get into this like actually like selecting different parts. But yeah, so these basically are very self-descriptive. And if you keep going, so you've had under actions, you have add, and then you have canvas. So you saw that I could crop and resize the canvas. And then there's also animation assist. So each group is basically a animation frame. So it's each layer or each group is an animation frame. So you can see that like one layer is this group, which just contains Greta and Duck. And then another frame is the orange, because that's another layer. And then you can also like add a new frame as well. And then you can add settings. So the settings will like, if you export this as an animation, you can set it so that it loops forever. If you do ping pong, it'll like ping pong from beginning to end as the animation. And if you do one shot, it'll just loop once. And there are more robust animation products. Like I wouldn't say that like Procreate is known for being an animation tool. Like I haven't heard of a lot of long form animations being developed out of Procreate, just because I think it would take a long time, and it's like pretty tedious to get every layer as an animation frame where you can like really do a lot of editing with animation. But it is nice if you like want to make like short animations, which I've done. And then the onion skin is basically like you can see that I can see the next frame. And I think that's called an onion skin. I haven't used this feature too much, but it's nice because you get to make like little GIFs. And so I heard noise.
Yeah, Caitlin, sorry, Goof, while you're going to the next question, we just have 2 questions in the chat. The first question is, if you always use the same brushes, is there a way to shortcut them so that you don't always have to go to each brush menu and select them?
I think there is a way to. I've never had to do that, but I think there might be a way to organize the brushes that you use. I know you can drag and drop, so like things are on the top, but I think there's actually a way to categorize them.
From what I remember, I think if you duplicate the brush and in the left panel, you can make like a whole new folder of all the duplicated brushes. And then just put it on like this, where the list of them are on the left. And it like just makes a folder. Yeah, it's a little finicky, but I think you can do that.
You definitely can. I just don't know how to make a new folder. Sorry. But it's easy to make a new brush. You just like swipe and then you can just click duplicate and change it around. You can even share it and export it, which I want to.
Yeah, and then the second question after that was, can you show lettering by hand?
Oh, I don't letter, but there actually is a lettering workshop, I think, or someone who knows how to do lettering in one of the like later workshops. Like usually when I say that I write, I like just use my handwriting. Like I just go like hello. And it's nice because it looks like I wrote it, but I don't actually like do. I wouldn't say my handwriting is like good for a card. But I know people do letter and like they use like really nice calligraphy brushes, or sometimes like just regular brushes, and then they clean it up like on the side so that they look more crisp. And then sometimes I know that people make something in Procreate or Photoshop and then they just like outline it in Illustrator so that it's like more crisp, or like they can export it as an SVG. Is that it? Is that it for questions?
Yep, that's all for now.
Okay, cool. We have about 18 minutes left, so I think I'm gonna wrap up this top left section, but if anyone wants me to do something else, just feel free to interrupt and just let me know, or if they want a specific thing reviewed. Because a lot of this is like, sometimes you don't need to use this, like sometimes you're happy with your painting and you don't have to like do all these adjustments to it. But yeah, another cool thing is that there's a drawing guide. I like using this when like I need to, especially when I need to write a comic, like I want to make sure that it's on the line. So it's nice that it'll show me like straight lines and I can write against them, and you can edit the drawing guide. Like you can adjust the thickness of the lines, you can adjust the grid size. And then you can turn on assisted drawing in the bottom right, which usually means that your lines are going to snap to the grid. This is really good if you're drawing buildings, which like require a lot of straight lines. And then there's like, you saw that there was like a 2D grid. There's also like different kinds of grid. Like there's isometric grids, there are perspective grids. I don't use these, but you have to like pick all these points to say like, oh, what perspective do I want? And then there's also Symmetry, which is really fun. This is basically like if you draw on one side, it'll mimic on the other side. I only use the 2D grid, but the Symmetry one is fun, especially if you want something. Sometimes you can draw a face and you want to make sure if it's facing forward that you're drawing it symmetrically, and maybe you would want to use it there. So yeah, I'm turning on my drawing guide. I'll leave it on. It doesn't do much. If you want to turn it off, like that's fine too. But I usually leave it on because it like doesn't, when you export it, it won't include the drawing guide. But it's nice to have to see if you're like on a straight line. You can flip the canvas. That's also, flipping the canvas around is a good way to see, because you're looking at a piece of artwork one way, and it's a good way to see if you like made any mistakes, especially if you're drawing a face like straight on. Like sometimes if you flip it horizontally, you're like, oh, this really isn't symmetrical, and it's actually like leaning to the right. If you get your canvas information, there's a lot of cool information there. It has all this metadata. So like it says like layers used, what the maximum layers are, how many assisted drawing layers there are, which there's none, but like how many layer masks. It also gives you like the color profile, which I don't really like use that one, but it's there. And also you can do a replay of your work. And then, so when you do a replay of your work, I'll show you what that looks like. But basically, Procreate lets you see the whole progress of your art, and basically by taking a picture every time you do a stroke. So I can see like, oh, this video will have like 127 strokes in it, and be like this file size. So that's interesting. And then if you wanted to share the image, again, there's like different ways. There's different file formats. I usually do PNG, but a lot of people do JPEG, Procreate, like PSD are popular formats. It's basically based off of what you need. Like if you wanted an animated one, you would have to do one of the animated versions. And then like if you wanted a transparent background, you would have to use PNG because that preserves the layers. And then like if you wanted, for instance, to share your work with someone else who's going to work on it and needs to see the layers, you would have to also preserve your layers. So you would have to like use Procreate or PSD, which can be opened in Photoshop. You can make a video, and then so this video is different from like if you exported animation. So this video lets you do, basically it exports a time lapse of your art, and you can either do the full length or 30 seconds. You can see what that looks like, but it'll basically be like a hyperlapse of your work. And then you can add preferences. I haven't ever changed these, so I'm not going to do it now, but like you can say like, actually maybe I'll change that one. So this, if you're saying I'm right-handed, this will move the slider to the right. It doesn't actually, I'm right-handed, but it doesn't affect me. You can also toggle between light and dark. Yeah, I haven't changed the other ones. I think editing the pressure curve might change the pressure of the pencil. And then if you go to help, I don't use this that much, but you can contact the support team. And I know that the support team has been pretty available. So I'm going to move on to the last three shouldn't take too long. But you can like edit most photos. The hue, saturation, and brightness. So the hue is like the base color, the saturation is like how rich a color will be, and then the brightness is like light and dark. So you can do it by layer, and then it will show up on the bottom. I'm editing the orange right now, so it's like changing colors. And then you can do the saturation. Sometimes you might want to change an image to black and white. You can just take down the saturation all the way and like change the brightness to see which type of black and white image you want. But yeah, I'm gonna undo that. And then there's other options. I won't go too much into them. The Gaussian blur like blurs the layer so it looks blurry. Yeah, and you can adjust it by like clicking on it. You can see that the orange is getting more blurry. And then let's see. Yeah, the blurs are all different kinds of blurs, but they all blur an image. And then you can like adjust it using your Apple Pen. And then you can see, I don't think that I use these quite often. But for instance, like I know that a lot of artists like using Liquify because you can push around the image without like having to select things. So Liquify is below. Like say I like want to make this person frown. This is not working. The brush is too big. That just ended up. If I use Liquify and I say that this is the size, I can make Greta frown. It's a little hard sometimes to push it around, but now Greta is frowning. Let's see if I missed anything. Clone is new. I haven't used it, but if you want to like copy part of your image to another part of your image, that's a good tool. Like, I think that would be good. I used to use Clone a lot. I used to use Photoshop quite often, actually. But it requires like a tablet and a pretty big device, or not a big device. You can use your laptop, but oftentimes like it would require a tablet. And then I just didn't have space for a tablet, so I ended up it ended up being nice that the iPad came out with Procreate, because it's like you can carry your iPad anywhere. That's been good. But I know that the clone tool lets you just like, you basically say like, I want to clone this part, clone it into another part. And I used to use that a lot with like, if I wanted repeated images, like maybe trees or mountains as a background.
Hey, Gu, when you have a second, could you talk about the options for layers? Brittany commented that she goes to the layers drawer and clicks on the N and sees a list of options. It'd be great to talk about opacity and things like that.
Oh yeah, so there's options on the layers. I can actually go back and talk about that. Like opacity will just change like how transparent an image is. I don't know if you can see this. So the shadow on the duck is getting lighter, and then if I do none, then you can't see it at all. I will say that I don't use these often, but I know that if you like, you can really see what they do by selecting them. Like, and sometimes they're self-descriptive. Like, they'll say like, oh, I want a darker color, or to like darken the bottom layer. But I really don't use these too much. I use the opacity a lot because, like, I didn't go into this, but like if I wanted to make a more complicated shape, like hands are really hard to draw. So sometimes you might want like to do circles first, like to see like to like make a shape. Like drawing smaller shapes into a bigger shape is easier. And then I usually change the opacity and then make a new layer and like go over it in an outline that I'm like, oh, this makes more sense as like a hand. And then I delete the bottom layer. Thank you for asking. And then, okay, I'll go back now. So these are the adjustments. I think it'll be rare to find someone that uses like all of the tools all the time. Like you'll notice that like I wouldn't say that like I'm an expert in all that is Procreate, like, but I feel like comfortable in using it for what I need, and that will be different for everyone. So like whatever you learn here is just kind of like a stepping stone to like what feels comfortable to you, and like it might not be what I do at all. And so so the last two things are just the selection. So this is going to be, I'll do it in the last few minutes. So you can do automatic, which will automatically select like the entire object in the layer, and then you can do freehand, rectangle, and ellipse. So it will select in a rectangular shape or an elliptical shape. So I'll do freehand because that's, I think, the most common usage. And let's say like I want to like, what should I take out? Maybe I want to add another bite in the orange. Oh, whoops, I'm not on the. So if I have freehand, like I can just say, like I can select based off my drawing, and then like you'll see, one complaint I have is that you can't like you can see what's selected, but it's a little hard because it's not like the contrast isn't super great. But I have something selected, and I can either remove it or invert it or copy and paste it somewhere. The feather will make sure that the selection border isn't as harsh, or I could fill it with color or clear. Usually I just move, if I want to select something, it's because I want to move it. So you can use it in combination with the arrow key, which is like moving things around. So I can transform it freeform, so like however I want. These options are all on the bottom. I can transform it uniformly, which will make sure that it's like it just gets bigger and it retains the same shape. I can distort it, which is like basically like all of the touch points are movable. And I can warp it, which is like changing the perspective entirely. Now this doesn't look like anything at all. And then like I can change it so that it fits to the screen. I can rotate it. I can flip it vertically, horizontally. Yeah. So that's it. So this is an introduction. So it was still a lot. But it's like this introduction includes like everything that I use for Procreate. And I'll continue to update the guide. But other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for doing this, Gu. This was super informative. If anyone has any questions, please leave them in the chat. We can take them up for the last 2-3 minutes of this call. But in the meantime, Gu, I'd love to see some of your other art if you have it. Like, how did you make it, and some of your favorite pieces if you have them. It'd be so cool to see.
I will say I actually got this iPad. I sold my old iPad and I got this iPad because my dog really got to my Apple Pencil, and like sometimes this iPad is nice because you could connect the pencil to the side. So I sold my original one, despite I usually don't go for new art supplies. Like I like sticking with my old one. So I don't have, that's a long way of saying I don't have a lot of art on this one, but I will say I'll show what I have. I have a lot of fan art on this one. I think this is my probably most time spent on this piece. I do a lot of fan art. So this is Sailor Moon. There was like a Sailor Moon redraw challenge. So you could basically, artists were prompted to draw Sailor Moon in their style. So it's like really fun to do, and it's based off a scene clip, and a lot of artists did like a lot of different interesting things with it. I've been drawing recipes. So this is a recipe. This is luosongtang. Sorry if I offended anyone with my pronunciation. But this is my family's recipe for the soup, which like contains like all of these ingredients. So that's a project I've been working on. I make comics sometimes. My art is usually a combination of like food. This is from Still Here, Still Life, which is an Instagram account that puts out food. Stills, or actually not just food, but different still art that you can draw off of. And then everyone does it in their own style, so none of it really looks the same. But yeah, that's a combination. And this is more fan art, so there were 6 fan arts.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, it's really cool to see kind of like all the different things that you can do with Procreate. Now that we only have a minute left, if anyone has any more questions, please throw them in the chat. I'm going to share a quick slide that has some links and a survey. We'd love to hear if you have any feedback for Gu or for ourselves or for the reactor, or any feedback really. It helps us, create better workshops for all of you. So here, I'll just share my screen really quickly. Give me a second. There we go. Yep. Let's just go to the next slide. There. So if you go on that survey link at the bottom there, it's just aka.ms/reactor/survey and put in that code. We can hear what you think about this event, and we have a whole bunch of other series coming up. So 2 more on the following Saturdays. So December 12th Saturday and the Saturday after that, that will cover a couple of other really cool topics that you can check out. I'll put the link to those in the chat as well. And then we'll continue the series after the new year on 3 other Saturdays in January to learn a little bit more in depth. So hopefully this introduction taught you some of the beginning steps, and then you can learn a little bit more about journaling and creating complex topics and sketching really technical talks and so forth. And thank you so much for joining, Caitlin. I'm sorry, Gu, pardon me. I keep saying Caitlin just because I read it.
I go by both. I just go by Gu because it's easier for people to remember. Yeah, thank you for having me. Did I interrupt you? Were you going to say something else?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to plug that I'm really happy to have you all. I really like drawing with people. I'm hosting online doodling sessions If anyone wants to join, they're totally free. They just are mostly different people streaming art, and sometimes me. So far, it's been all different people the last week. And then a lot of my art is on my Instagram. I didn't get to show like a lot of it, but I put it in the chat if you want to see. No pressure to join either, but thank you for coming.
Where can they join you on those doodling sessions?
So it's on my website, which also contains the Procreate doc, which will eventually be like a website for Procreate and like pictures of examples and videos of examples. I just wanted to make a short guide for the purpose of this presentation first. But yeah, everything is on my website and my Instagram.
Okay, great. So we'll put those links in the chat as well if you can, Gu, and then we can share them out. And so folks can join you for doodling. But thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
All right. Bye. See you all at the next one. Bye.